There is no disagreement that the written version of the Aseret HaDibrot transmitted to the Bnei Yisrael at Har Sinai were engraved on 2 tablets of stone. This is based upon the many references to Moshe receiving the Shnei Luchot HaEdut, Luchot HaEven, 2 blocks of stone, and for some reason it was commonly accepted that the representation of these 2 Luchot took the form of a flat base and a rounded top, a shape that may have been borrowed from non-Jewish sources. Whatever the shape, the Aseret HaDibrot appear to be divided equally, a set of 5 Dibrot engraved on each of the Luchot, a somewhat strange division in that of the 170 words that make up the Aseret HaDibrot, the first 5 Dibrot contain 144 words, while the remaining 5 Dibrot have a mere 26 words. The imagery notwithstanding, the common tendency is to divide the Aseret HaDibrot into 2 sets of 5. The first 5 deal with the relationship between God and man. The second are bein Adam leChavero, dealing with man's relationship to man. The fly in the ointment here is the 5th commandment of Kabed et Avicha ve'et Imecha, clearly belongs in the man group. It comes in as number 5 of the Aseret HaDibrot. An alternative division of the Aseret HaDibrot is to divide them rather lopsidedly into a group of 2 and a group of 8. The difference not in the content, but rather in the transmission of these Dibrot to the Bnei Yisrael. Aside from the first 2 Dibrot, the formal transmission of the commandment went from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe Rabbeinu, and it was Moshe Rabbeinu who transmitted the commandments to the nation, as was the process with hundreds of other mitzvot recorded in the Torah. The first 2 commandments, Anochi Hashem Elokecha and Lo Yeh Lecha Elohim Achirim, were transmitted directly to the Bnei Israel, bypassing Moshe Rabbeinu. The basis for this distinction comes to us from a midrashic interpretation to a statement made in Devarim 33:4, a pasuk that we had used earlier, that Torah tziva lanu Moshe, morasha kehilat Yaakov. The word Torah has both a broad definition encompassing all aspects of study, as in the expression Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam, and also a very narrow definition referring specifically to the Aseret HaDibrot, communicated from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the Bnei Israel at Har Sinai. And while the Peshat reading of Devarim 33:4 would place the word Torah as referring to the Aseret HaDibrot, from the world of Medrash, the word Torah would refer to 611 of the 613 Taryag mitzvot. The flow-on from this drash is that of the 613 mitzvot, 611 were transmitted to the Bnei Israel through Moshe as the intermediary, hence the wording Torah Tziva Lanu Moshe, but there were 2 that were transmitted to the Bnei Israel that came directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This position is sourced from Masechet Makot Daf Chaf Gimel Amud Bet, which incidentally is one of the few sources that we have for the magic number of 613 that represents the total number of mitzvot recorded in the Chamisha Chumshei Torah. The specifics of which mitzvot are included and which mitzvot are left out is a matter of debate amongst the Rishonim. In a statement attributed to Rabbi Simlai, the Gemara states that Sheish Me'ot, B'Sholosh Esrei mitzvot, Nemru Lo LaMoshe, 613 mitzvot were communicated to Moshe Rabbeinu to be transmitted to the Bnei Yisrael. The Gemara divides them up into 365 negative commandments and 248 positive commandments. Rav Hamnuna asks rhetorically, Maikra, what evidence is there from the text that supports that the Torah contains Taryag mitzvot? And answers that this is based upon a pasuk, Torah tziva lanu Moshe, Morasha, etc. And he interprets the pasuk that Torah begematria shit me'ah v'chad srei havi, 611. That of this Taryag mitzvot, 611 came from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Moshe and then on to the Bnei Israel. However, Anochi v'lo yiyeh lecha, the first 2 commandments of the Aseret HaDibrot, mipi ha'gevura shema'anum, were heard directly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Rebbe will use this distinction to amplify the thesis of this overall Sikha, namely that there are two aspects of Torah. On the one hand, Torah as a mechira, and limited in scope, and the second aspect, Torah as matana, a level that is lema'al mitam v'dat, beyond the abilities of the finite human being to access, without the itaruta de l'mayla from HaKadosh Baruch Hu.